These are the 50 meager tiles I'm restricting myself to. And this is my last village. It's a 3,500 tile self-proclaimed masterpiece that's got every possible amenity. But my village of ascetic monks is going to have every last one of these, while we grow into a fantastic monastery on this tiny plot of land using only what we make here. And just to make it a bit more interesting, I'm not building any of my rooms underground. That'd just be too easy. We've got Trikos the animal expert, Pentecost the botanist, and the researcher Bayhild, whose name I'll fix later. After preparing the 50 tile island using dev tools, the villagers rope the cow over and get started guarding their monastery to be. Pentecost alone starts off with chopping and harvesting, since their high botany means higher yields and fewer ruined harvests. Wood gets used for a research bench, hay gets turned into beds, and the start of a second story goes in to give that bench a roof. Next up is a butchering table and a campfire to cook at. Yeah, our cow is not long for this world. I'll cut ahead to spare you through the worst of it, but we only brought a cow for their meat. There's so much of it that it got dumped outside. Look, it was leaving the holy site for 8 seconds or starving. When the game spawns stuff outside like that, I am going to make brief exceptions to go grab it and nothing else. There, I fixed Quadricost's name. The first major milestone is agriculture. Getting supplies is one of the major challenges on this map, and wood is our biggest roadblock to all future development. Of the 5 trees we started with, 3 were dead, which means we only have 2 saplings that I can plant to give me 1 harvest in midsummer and another in late autumn. In retrospect, I should have looked for an area with more live trees and less hay, but it's too late for that. I will eventually look to expand wood production, and this isn't as bad as it sounds, but that's a problem for down the line. The front gets a door put in to let both traders and raiders interact with us. We are going to be trading for goods, although we're only buying them with what we make here. Time passes pretty quickly. Without much work to do, most of the monk's time is spent staring over Quadricost's shoulder. We need building materials and wood. Instead, we get freezing temperatures cold enough to stop meat from rotting, that our villagers are sleeping outside in the rain. God, a monk's life isn't easy, even ignoring that we're over halfway through our meat. We are at least making good progress on the technology that should keep us alive after that. We just need a research table. No, we actually need more wood. Oh, that's gonna be a big problem. Alright, we're making a new plan. We finish the chronicles we need for our current goal, then deconstruct the basic research bench to give us enough wood for a regular one. A trader is here to maybe address that problem, meaning I'll go ahead and unlock the door at the front. I'm sure that no one is gonna try to make a break for it. Stop embarrassing me, Quadricost. They're gonna think we don't live in a perfect utopia. In the rain. That trader will take leather and tallow from Bessie for some barley, seeds, and ale. It's not wood, but this should help with food and hay for the future. And booze is a good way to forget about the fact that we're not addressing any of our main issues. Once we get enough textbooks, that second tier table gets broken down so the basic one can get built in its place. This isn't efficient, but we need a couple more chronicles, and our wood stores are so low that we just really don't have a choice. It's eventually enough to unlock our salvation. Bees. Skeps only take a single tile and produce a huge amount of food per day. Plus, beeswax can be sold off. We need a little more wood for the 2 or 3 I'm gonna need to sustain everyone. But for now, Trikos prepares the bees. After a couple days, they're gonna give us our first batch of treasure. That last trader was from the same disciples that now hunt a fleeing brethren of our order. We'll take them in despite the threat of a raid. This monastery is a safe space. The plan is to deconstruct the research table and build a single Merlon facing whichever direction that raid arrives from. That may let us shoot everyone dead without taking too much damage from their archers. Oh, and let's make sure to properly rename the new villager. Welcome to Hexakos. They're gonna fit right in as a part-time researcher. After discovering that you don't get wood back from canceling a construction that's halfway done, the situation goes from bad to worse. I already salvaged the research table for this. We need the wood for more skeps, but now we don't have enough for Merlon. That means we're gonna be facing a max difficulty raid without any cover. Hopefully, high ground's enough. There aren't supposed to be very many of them. Or any of them, actually. The faction might be angry, but they didn't attack us. That could have been disastrous. Now we only have to deal with possibly imminent starvation, the lack of space, the lack of wood, the lack of other building materials, and growing mood problems. At least we finally have honey to cook up, although the monks are still going to have to practice fasting until a second skep finishes producing too. With that, the first rebellion kicks off. Quadricost honestly has a pretty fair response. I mean, she's been doing like 90% of the work while everyone else idles around her. Fair on her. The second skep comes through, and it does look like they make just enough food to keep everyone from starving. Now that we're steady there, we wait to slowly get wood from our planted trees and other resources from randomly generated and sporadic traders. Or, look, I'm gonna use dev tools to summon a merchant every few days. Waiting for the thousands of resources we need would take about 10 in-game years, and it's still gonna take a few years even with traders. I'll sell all my books, books, goods, and most of my hay for a few buildings we can deconstruct for wood, as well as for some apple saplings. These give way less wood than our other saplings, but they're still each about 1 per day if I chop the trees instead of letting them grow apples. Between that and the deconstructed table, we have enough wood to start building up again, which starts by going down. This is being played on the experimental branch for what will be update 6, which gives us buildable soil to unlock. While I'm not going to build rooms underground, I will mine it out for the soil to build upwards and for an eventual garden. It takes some finagling to actually get the 15 soil we need for a ramp, but we're finally ready to rebel all at once. They're bored, don't have a religion, and don't have booze, but we're a long way off from fixing any of those problems. Despite that, another settler wants to join us. We could feed them, but everyone else is already idling. We don't really need more hands, and they'd make raiders harder too. We can't even give them a weapon anytime soon. After another couple days, I finally unlock landscaping and put in a dirt slope down a level. That'll give us more soil, but we've also got a lot of wood coming in. Those saplings we planted what feels like forever ago grew up nicely and gave us over 100 wood. We're gonna put that to use building upwards. I'm gonna mine the floor out all the way to a corner, then throw in a beam to support the floor on this level. The plan is to have tall pillars in all 4 corners of our island and then use beams for support on all of the levels. That should give us just enough space. We're pretty heavily restricted on where we build by the garden. You can't grow plants beneath any buildings, meaning that a third of our monastery won't be getting built up until we're tall enough for an eventual rooftop garden. That also means that the current garden is a lot smaller than I'd like it to be. In better news, we have a ton of books. It's actually becoming something of a space issue. That's a good problem to have, but let's unlock furniture for bookshelves, then decorative structures to build a chapel, and start addressing mood issues. We finally have enough materials to start building up just in time for raiders to come try and burn us down. This is going to be a really hard fight. We do have the high ground, but they only have to break down 1 door. We've only got 3 weapons, and we can't easily put a Merlon in the direction that they're coming from. I'll shrink this proposed floor down to only the bare minimum so that I can rush a couple Merlons in. With so little work to do, everyone comes together to get it done just barely quickly enough to beat the intruders to the punch. Hexacost is rebelling, but thankfully, she's the unarmed one. Quadricost could rebel at any moment though, which would almost certainly doom us, and even without that, this is a 3-on-12 fight. Those solid longbows we started with at least make quick work of the poorly armored enemies, but there are a lot of them. The axe-wielding foe needs to go down or our door will evaporate. He does, but others join in his place as their archers fire away at us. We have to return fire and take those out. A couple foxes sneak in to get dinner, and the fantastic show of our entrance getting successfully breached. We have no melee weapons. Hexacost hasn't even finished having her tantrum, but she still acts as a roadblock and they start attacking her. Foes stream in, leaving us with little to no choice but to finish killing off just enough of them that the remainder retreat before they kill us all. That means ignoring the soldiers in our face and firing on weak enemies, hoping to get hits that kill them and send the enemies fleeing. 1 more, come on. Please kill, let's go. Wait, defeat? Alright, looking back, I'm pretty sure I know what happened. We killed the last person we needed to kill to force the enemy to retreat exactly 1 minute too late. The game's calling it our loss, even though we killed 9 without anyone dying. To be fair, it doesn't really look like a win for us either. 1 person's critically injured, and another 2 aren't looking so hot. But we can heal up and fix the base before we get back to expanding to that 3rd story. Another merchant arrives as we put in our shrine. That cost a lot of wood, and we don't actually have enough wood to turn it into a chapel yet, but it's good for their mood regardless. The trader, meanwhile, is good for a lot of resources and a few more apple saplings. I'll sell a cow that wandered up even though it's not technically from our little monastery, because the alternative is just letting it starve outside in the winter. We'll also sell a lot of beeswax and a few other goods. Those stone bricks we bought will fill out the 3rd floor nicely, and then beyond that in the future. As we build up though, it's still important to look down. We're running out of easily accessible dirt. Honestly, the way I planned out my stairs was horrible, and I should have waited until I was off the 1st floor completely to do a better job of it, but I'm not going to be able to fix that for a while. At least I'm not going to need any more soil until I'm at the top level. And with 7 stories to go and each one costing about 200 resources, it's going to be a while even with merchants. This is going to be the last trader I show because they all sort of turn out like this. They arrive, we sell them a ton of chronicles and maybe some beeswax for about 100 building material. In this case, it's a cartography table we can install and then deconstruct for some extra wood. Instead of just building upwards though, that wood's going to get turned into decorations to make this little space into a proper chapel. That's us accomplishing the first of our many goals. Hopefully the rest come a little bit more quickly now that we're actually set up. But first, we unaccomplished what we just finished. I need to move the chapel over 1 space, since I forgot to make room for stairs up, and I don't want them going in the middle of the monastery. That'd seriously mess with what I have in mind for the next floor. Some floor tiles go in to act as a roof for the chapel and the basis of the next story, but we don't have quite enough material until another merchant arrives. This one brought us a basic research table that we're actually going to use instead of just turning into extra wood. Twice as many tables means twice as many books, and that should speed up our growth a good bit. In fact, let's start working on a library to help with that some more. It's not going to be grand, and it's going to need a lot more wood that we don't have yet, but the wall and roof can start going in all the same. Snow starts to fall and problems come with it. We only have 3 winter outfits, so hypothermia is going to be a big issue for exactly one of us. I try to buy a wolf headpiece from a merchant and have that solve it, but it's not nearly enough for an otherwise naked monk to resist the cold. They didn't have any winter clothes, but they did at least bring us enough wood for everything. So once we put that final wall in, the library is officially in. Unfortunately, that cold's going to be a big issue. I tried to have them share an outfit to see if that fixes it, but it only takes half a day for Tricos, who gave her outfit up, to be at half health and rapidly deteriorating from there. Worse, another one of our outfits disintegrates. That's 2 naked colonists, and the other outfits are only on single-digit hit points. They're not going to last for long. Thankfully, these monks aren't unionized, and no one stops me from putting a torch in a tiny wood and paper-filled room with no ventilation. This fire hazard turned library / tomb in waiting is going to be a nice and toasty, still freezing. It's just barely enough to stop them from literally dying inside the library, but that's the only respite from the elements they have right now. A night's sleep still leaves our naked villagers on death's door while they crawl to work and use frozen fingers to make more books. Everything for the monastery. The next story is going to be used for bedrooms. I'd originally planned to use it for something else, but this cold is nasty and they need a warm place to sleep. It's just going to be a 1-bunk room with their hay sleeping spots crammed back to back for now though. They don't really need the mood buff from private rooms thanks to the chapel, but this should almost entirely take care of cold nights, which is getting rid of our biggest issue. And it's actually an even bigger one now that the 3rd outfit breaks. Only Pentecost has any clothes on at this point, and the others show their jealousy by aggressively passing out in their general direction. Oh, also I guess food's running low because we can't make more honey in winter, and we need to actually make more books to sell for food because it's expensive this season. But with Pentecost nursing everyone back to health when they occasionally pass out in the cold between the library and the bedroom, we do survive. Time passes, winter starts to near its end without much in the way of progress, but we're alive. Spring should bring plenty of progress. We're changing the layout on stairs, which sounds like it shouldn't do much, but it's actually critical for one of the goals, and it's useful for letting us dig out more of the dirt beneath us. It also clears up the entrance to our eventual defenses. Thankfully, we don't need to defend from that cold much longer. Early spring brings a cold snap and one less bout of hypothermia as we pass our 1-year anniversary, but that cold should end soon, and we should be able to either buy clothes or the material to make it before that next winter hits. Part of steadily improving our defenses is a setup, but another part is an actual bowyer's table. We don't have the wood to use this yet, but spring means our trees are slowly giving us wood yet again. When that's done, I'll break down a wooden shield that fell inside the monastery, then make hexacost a bow of their own. We're making a lot of progress building up, but we've been using one layout with the stairs off to one side. It's time to change that for an eventual great hall. They require an interior of 50 spaces, but we only have 50 tiles to begin with. By the time you wall off the outside, you only have an 8x3 space of 24 tiles on each floor. That means our great hall is going to have to be one huge 2.5-story room, or almost a quarter of our entire volume. As we near in on finishing the outer structure, it's time for a big milestone. No longer sowing saplings as soon as we can. Instead, we're going to save them and put them in our imminent rooftop garden. Another raid. It's been a while since I got one of these, but I guess I should have expected this. That is a big one though. 4 on 13, including 5 master archers. The game's scaling raids to our wealth, which is pretty high thanks to all the high value books we make and trade. Let's let everyone pray for victory before they get into position in this little 2-tile box surrounded by Merlons, helping them take on the enemy archers. Yep, welcome to half of our defenses. It's even the better half. Their master archers knocked Tricos out for reasons I'm sure aren't related to the defenses I gave them, but we're putting out a lot of damage and taking the enemies down quickly despite that. We don't even get to use the peepholes to shoot down on the enemies that make it inside the base. I could let them in to get their loot, but rebuilding the door costs 15 wood. We would need to at least get 6 wooden items from the enemies to come out ahead. More and more go down until we claim our victory. Wait, another defeat? It didn't even time out. Is this because Tricos is unconscious? We killed so many of them though. Man, this game really has it out for devout monks. Let's celebrate with backgammon and building out the first parts of the Great Hall. The decorations alone cost hundreds of wood, so this is where most of it's going to be going for a while. Bricks are going to be used for the actual tower itself, and once we're on the 10th floor, we can put on soil for our rooftop garden. Oh, that's so nice to see. Stairs are going to get us up to actually plant the garden while we get rid of the previous farm. Quadricos decides to get stuck, but she can actually mine straight down to get out. That's actually a really good way to get all the soil out of this place. She really is a smart one. We still need more soil to maximize our garden space, but I'm not sure how possible that is. The remaining dirt is going to be really hard to get without investing a ton of building materials down there, so I think I might just fill these spots in with bricks eventually. But enough planning. Let's actually get some crops going. A bit of barley goes in, then our 2 big trees, then the horde of apple saplings we've been stockpiling. This full farm should get me a grand total of 20 wood per day. 15 if you average out the 0 we'll be getting in the winter. It's way better than before, although building a monastery on that little is going to make regular villages feel downright luxurious in the future. That'll go towards finishing the Great Hall off and some new workstations we have to unlock. That's right, we're finally in the endgame, which means we'll use 130 books for research instead of just selling them. Then we'll get to work finalizing some of our rooms. Since the library is seeing so much more use, let's expand it. This is going to be the perfect size, which is nice because that's as big as it can possibly get. The research table fits in nicely here, leaving space for an advanced research table once we can afford the wood. We could probably afford to have the skeps working a little less. We're actually so low on space that the skeps all the way down on the second story spawn their honey on the roof. The bedroom area gets a change to give the villagers their own private rooms. A butchering table goes in what will be our kitchen, even though we don't actually have animals to butcher. And best of all, we get enough wood for the Great Hall. Boom. In fact, that was so great, let's move a banner to see that pop up again. This whole multi-story area is one room thanks to some holes in the floor. The kitchen gets a stove we bought from a merchant, although it still needs wooden shelves to be finished. Snow from the second winter starts to arrive, but we're doing way better on food, and no one's outfit is about to disintegrate, so I don't think it's going to be disastrous like last year's. And if they do need warmth, they can always just cozy up to the forge going in one of our workshops. Let's not cozy up to raiders too much though. The archers pull ours away from cover, but we still have the high ground and enough skill to lay out kill after kill. Pentecost starts to get a little bit low, but their archers die off and we can instead turn our attention on the raiders that broke down that front door. That means it's time to show off the peephole. It lets us easily shoot down and kill every raider who tries to breach our doors. This close, they just can't miss. The enemies go down without doing too much to it, and we eventually kill off enough to give us our first proper victory. I really don't know what the difference is between this and our previous quote-unquote defeats. Maybe none of us are knocked out? Well, let's get to breaking down and equipping some of this gear, although I'm not planning on using the fuel we'd need to burn any corpses, so those are just gonna stay on the ground. We're nearing the completion of our final goals, but who can say if that's a good thing for sure? A monastery is meant to bring peace, but can this be called serene? The monks scurry around, there's always more work to do. Books to sell, improvements to build, and stairs to climb. If their diet had any protein instead of solely being comprised of honey, they'd have legs of absolute steel. Minds of Steel can instead start working at a new, more advanced research table. Once in, that finishes the library and lets us unlock the last few technologies. Now it's time to finish those last buildings, and boy is our dense tower about to get even more claustrophobic. A sewing station goes in by the forge, while an armorer's table gets its own floor. Both rooms are completely full, but let's make this whole place even worse by accepting another villager. They're not bad, it's just overcrowded. We've got the food for it, but we actually need more help hauling and working our library now. I can even fit one last little bedroom in right near the entrance. Spring comes pretty quickly while we slowly accumulate the last resources we need. Now that we're stockpiling books, we don't have anything to sell for more materials. Food did get a little bit close, but our bees are ready to give us more soon after snow stall, so we're gonna be fine. Wood will start growing now too, so let's put in the last improvements. A fixed roof gets some chairs put atop it. Our monks deserve a pleasant sitting area. We'll unlock the highest tiers of brewing, then put it in on the bottom floor. Even though we can't actually ferment anything into booze with this, we can buy the cheap stuff and refine it here. Fermenting itself would be nearly impossible without building underground. It's just too hard to maintain the right temperature year round. And that's it. The last goal's done. Defenses are in on the first two floors, and the dead bodies still there prove it works. Smithing's done on the second floor armorer's table, and the sixth floor's forge. A Fletcher's workshop is on the fifth floor outside a couple private bedrooms. The recreational area is up top, giving everyone a lovely view of the inferior, dirty outside world that those not inside the monastery have to deal with. There's obviously the local farm nearby. That seventh floor kitchen is pretty far from the skeps down below. The spirit distillery is on the bottom floor. The Great Hall is all of floors 8, 9, and half of 10. It even has a dirty mini throne room. The first completed goal, our chapel, is on the third floor next to some private houses. Tailoring is done near the forge because who doesn't like smoke-scented clothes? And finally, our not-so-grand library that made all of this possible is on the fourth floor. These ascetic monks have survived, thrived, and conquered the land around them. Well, a small part of it anyways. In the end, we used 200 limestone walls, 12 sets of stairs, hundreds of floors, dozens of doors, stations, and more. Thousands of resources have made this tower to the gods atop our 50-tile home. If you've enjoyed this foray into limited building, make sure to like the video. And if you like challenges, check out some of my other content, and then sub. The next update for Going Medieval is going live soon, and it's got a great new challenge built into the slider system. It's about time I did another full playthrough.